David Daleiden are suing Planned Parenthood, Senator Kamala Harris, and California's Attorney General for conspiracy to violate civil rights. The lawsuit states the complaint, quote, seeks justice for a brazen, unprecedented, and ongoing conspiracy to selectively use California's video recording laws as a political weapon to silence disfavored speech. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about this is Tom McCluskey, president of March for Life, and thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on today.
Okay, we'll get right to it. David Daleiden and the Center for Medical Progress exposed the sale of baby body parts in a series of undercover videos. What's at the heart of this new case?
Well, David, for all the work he's done, deserves awards. Instead, he's been persecuted almost from day one. The reason that Senator Kamala Harris is one of the people listed is when she was Attorney General, when David started releasing these videos, she worked closely with the Planned Parenthood affiliate in California to specifically craft law that would target David. If that's not persecution and abuse of office, I'm really not quite sure what would be.
Daleiden, looking at my notes here, he contends his recordings did not violate California recording law, that he was doing what other journalists have done. So is there a double standard here?
Without a doubt, there's a double standard, and that's what they were thinking of when they were crafting the law. They were thinking of people like David Daleiden or people like Lila Rose who target pro-abortionists or target abortion facilities and expose it for what it really is.
Now, Senator Kamala Harris, who was California's AG when the investigation into Daleiden's work was launched, and the current Attorney General for California, Javier Becerra, are named in the lawsuit. What is their connection with Planned Parenthood?
Well, at least for both of them, Planned Parenthood contributed quite a lot to their campaigns. I know with Senator Kamala Harris, she's received since 2010 about $81,000 from pro-abortion forces, including quite a bit from Planned Parenthood. So there's definitely some sort of quid pro quo going on here on top of the abuse of office.
Tom McCluskey, president of March for Life Action, thank you for your time tonight, your insights, and
about your encounters with her and a raid on your apartment.
Yeah. So in April of 2016, at the behest of Planned Parenthood, Kamala Harris ordered a search warrant served on my home in Orange County. I think it was a total of 11 agents of the California Department of Justice sent by Kamala Harris came in, overturned my entire one-bedroom apartment. They seized all of the video recording equipment, all of my computer equipment, everything that was, all the electronic equipment that was used to do the undercover filming. Fortunately, there were backup hard drives and, attorneys had copies of stuff and other things. So they didn't take anything that I absolutely needed in order to continue to do my work, but they primarily were looking for the videos, and they were looking for the original videos. We have in the investigator notes from the Attorney General's office now, they recorded in their case notes Planned Parenthood specifically requesting of Kamala Harris's office that they would specifically go in and seize the videos from me. So they were trying to take all the raw footage away and trying to do a huge cover-up. They weren't successful at doing that, but that's just one of many things that Kamala Harris, as Attorney General of California, was willing to do to put the powers of her law enforcement office at the service of the interests of a powerful and favored political backer at Planned Parenthood.
I thought that they were going to charge me for sales murder. I never talked to no detective, no police officer, no DA, nobody.
Just arrested and then charged?
Arrested and charged, that's it.
Was the first time you saw Kamala Harris in person the day that the verdict was issued?
She showed up at the two most pivotal times in this first trial, and me being convicted and me being sentenced. She wanted to be present for a celebration of a conviction.
That's what it felt like, a celebration?
A celebration, that's what it felt like.
Senator Harris had a CNN town hall event. At one point, Tapper is delving into her tenure as California's Attorney General, and that's sort of a tough position to be in. as a Democrat particularly, because as the Attorney General, you are in charge of the well-being and the professional development and the success of all the police officers in the state. And on the other hand, the base voters of the Democratic Party were really seizing on the issue of police use of force around the same time that Harris was in office. One of the criticisms that has been leveled against her was that she never took a position on a bill to require an independent investigation when there's a fatal shooting by police officers. This is the issue when you talk about Ferguson, when you talk about Eric Garner, when you talk about any number of black men usually who are unarmed, who are shot by police officers. There's often an accountability gap in the results that happen when you investigate these things. Harris did not take a position on the bill, and Tapper asked about it. Why didn't you take a position on this bill? Why did you oppose it? And Harris said, actually, I didn't oppose it. My job as Attorney General meant that I had to write some pieces of the legislation, the title and the summary. And so my process was not to comment and not to take a position. But you look at the website for the California Attorney General, and we found like 20 news releases or more where she was taking a position either in favor or against some kind of measure that was in the legislature. So it didn't add up.
You were talking about Kamala Harris, and I think this might be a good time to talk about this because she might be the vice presidential nominee. What specifically did she do where there was someone who was innocent or someone who was wrongfully convicted?
Let me give a caveat.
Okay.
Caveat is that I know I'll catch shit from some people that say you have to do everything you can to make sure that Trump is not elected. And I will say that even she's an improvement as vice president if he does pick her. Anything's an improvement in my mind. So with that caveat, it would take this podcast and 4 more to go through. She fiercely fought wrongful convictions and was shamed by judges when she was district attorney in San Francisco. What was the case? The Gage case?
George Gage.
The George Gage case, where her prosecutors hid evidence and they tried to protect. Once she knew that there was evidence that was withheld from defense attorneys, once she should have known, in my opinion, that people were innocent, she tried to protect those convictions. Why? Because she wanted to continue winning. She blocked DNA. She went to great lengths to try to block access to DNA for people that were accused of or convicted of felonies. Think about it. We're talking about a $12 DNA test to see if the biological material from a crime that has been preserved is actually the defendant's, right? She blocked access to that. I mean, the list.
How do you block access to something like that? That seems like that should be a right.
Yeah, it seems like it should be a right, but in a lot of states, there's legislation that says you cannot get access to it, and the rationale behind it is that it'll open up a floodgate of criminal defendants asking for the biological evidence in their case to be tested. I mean,
that's the last thing we would want is more innocent people being freed. So what was her justification for this?
You know, when she's asked for her justification of it, it's always been on a debate stage, and she'll always default to, I stand by my record as a prosecutor, and she's never had an explanation that I have ever seen. I don't know, Jason and I were talking about this before we came on today, because there was a New York Times piece by, her name's escaping me.
Lara Bazelon,
which if any of your listeners want to listen to it, she goes into, exhaustive detail about specific cases and things that Kamala Harris did. And, the sad part about it, yeah, that's it right there.
New York Times, Kamala Harris was not a progressive prosecutor.
Yeah, she was often on the wrong side of history.
What is that? The marijuana one that you just highlighted?
She stood by criminalizing marijuana in this state.
Now, listen, what we can hope is that she's certainly been saying all the right things lately. I don't know what to believe, to be honest.
Well, it's because she wants to be the president.
Well,
President Biden said no one was better qualified to take charge of the influx of unaccompanied migrant children than his vice president. And he pointed out that this was the role he took under President Obama when he was vice president.
One of the ways we learned is that if you deal with the problems in country, It benefits everyone.
Kamala Harris laid out several areas of focus.
I look forward to engaging in diplomacy with government, with private sector, with civil society, and the leaders of each in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras to strengthen democracy.
Lawmakers urging the Biden administration to provide explanations for the disappearance of 85,000 migrant children.
Representative Juan Ciscomani has written a letter to the administration raising concerns about unaccompanied migrant children being handed over to adults and then failing to keep track of them. News 4 Tucson's Gabrielle Parrish is live outside the congressman's office tonight with more on what they're asking for. Gabrielle.
Whistleblowers are revealing that the Biden administration is releasing young migrant children into the arms of adult supervisors who have not been properly vetted with a background check. And that's coming from Representative Juan Ciscomani.
Now we have 85,000 missing unaccompanied minors.
All of those young children were processed through the port of entry here in the U.S., but now there are no sign of them anywhere.
Taking office, Vice President Harris was assigned the difficult task of the border, checking in with Central American governments and trying to get to the root causes of immigration problems in the United States. The Trump campaign has already labeled that effort a failure, while Democrats blame the other side.
That's why I've asked the Vice President of the United States yesterday to be the lead person on dealing with focusing on the fundamental reasons why people leave Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador in the first place.
I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people.
So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people.